Something super is coming to town.
Oh, come all ye sports fans and get ready for another Sky Bet Super Week. Supersized with not 1, but 2 weeks of free bets, huge boosts and giveaways.
From Friday the 20th of December to Thursday the 2nd of January. There will be some special offers dropping across football, horse racing, boxing, darts and more.
Sit back, get the sport on, and get ready for even more of what you love. Sky Bet for the fans.
Did you watch the Villa game?
I actually couldn't believe it. Not necessarily because of the result. Losing to Villa, I don't think it's something to be ashamed of. They're a good side with an excellent manager. But the whimper. I just thought he was so weak. You know what I expected from Man City? I expected them to be at some point like a caged animal. You know, like wild, feral, desperate for fighting like lunatics for victory. You know, if you see like an injured lion on the Serengeti and they're going crazy to survive.
Yeah.
I thought the City would be like that, and they weren't. They were like an injured animal that was about to die in the corner of the room.
So bad. On some level, it's the worst result out of all of them, mate. Because Man United is a derby, and they can beat you if they're bad or good. A derby can be a different. Spurs are very similar. The Champions League results, Juventus, etc. There's something about that, how Aston Villa approached the game. They absolutely bullied Man City in a way that was cataclysmically bad. It was so bad, man.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you don't really have anything to offer. And the problem with City is, you know, with certain issues at clubs, you go, once this club does that, everything will be all right again. When Arsenal were going through their slump, Arsenal fans were very adamant that the second they get Martin Odegaard back, everything will be all right again. You've had other issues in certain teams. Whenever this happens, things will be okay again. With regard to Man City, short of talking about Rodri, and I feel like this issue at City is so much bigger than Rodri nowadays. It's so much bigger. This slump isn't Rodri. You know, like one defeat, you could go, it's not Rodri. It's just not. This is so much bigger than Rodri.
There's other issues there.
And I don't know what the answer is, mate. You look like you're going to get beat every week. And you're going into games now, I genuinely think you're going to lose before you kick the ball.
Well, we've got Leicester City.
You've got nice fixtures
Everton.
now. Yeah, you've got nice fixtures. Yeah.
Everton been doing well. They've got a point against Chelsea, a point against Arsenal.
On paper, at least, Manchester City are moving into a fixture list now that is generous and kind. So it's the season of goodwill.
We've fought that a few times with some of their, like, surely they can't lose this one. And then they go and do it. And I think Everton have shown they've got some, they've got something to build on in terms of their defensive
they've had
unit.
good draw against Arsenal, good draw against us.
West Ham usually bend over for City, but,
They've found a bit of form, West Ham, though, haven't they? They've found a little bit of form. They've started to pick up some results, got a win. I just don't know what's going on. I really don't. And you know what? I think the conversation around Guardiola is relevant. I think the conversation around Guardiola, like, you can park his legacy, you can acknowledge his prestige. In my opinion, the second best manager in the Premier League era. Not really the point for this conversation, but if you think he's the best, excellent as well. But you could still say now, whilst acknowledging his legacy, this is atrocious.
I don't know, Booth, you know better, but I've been trying to. I was watching the game while I was painting yesterday, and I was trying to think, what is the actual issue here? And, like, you can lose a few games and you go, all right, those things happen. Teams get tired or whatever. There's fatigue, there's injuries to key players. They lose a bit of confidence because Rodri's not behind them in the midfield or whatever. But it's just going on for so long now. Do you think, now I'm not suggesting Pep should be sacked, by the way, not at all. But do you think the dressing room may be just a little bit fatigued with the idea of Pep's style of football? How intense he can be, how on top of them he can be, how much energy they have to put into his performances. And after 4 years of winning the league consistently, Champions League in there, treble in there, have they just grown tired of what he's asking them to do?
I think it's more the fact they're tired physically, but I agree with what you're saying. I do. I think he's all-encompassing figure. He's a genius, and we saw it with maybe Ferguson. We saw it with Jurgen Klopp. We saw it with Mourinho. They do burn out. Players burn out with the same expressions, the same kind of passionate team talks. It can't get through. If you can't do what he's asking you to do on the pitch, then it can't get through. But there are things on the pitch that, like, as a fan, you can sit here and say, "Oh, well, I'll just accept the losses and moan about them," or when we win, we celebrate. But actually, you can sit there and be a little bit more constructive, in my opinion. And as a fan, I look at it, I think there's still options there on the bench where he should be. I think Haaland has to come off earlier. He has to just take him off. You have to take this guy off. He played the whole game. He played the whole game against Aston Villa.
He literally doesn't touch the ball.
I suggest
first half he touched it five times, mate. There was a stat came up on the screen.
You probably took kickoff as well, so that's 4.
I suggested yesterday that maybe going to a false 9 could help you keep the ball in the final third a bit more.
Well, James McAtee's the one. I know you guys wouldn't know him massively, but he was obviously on loan last season at Sheffield United. Very, very highly respected, linked to some Premier League clubs, including Leicester City in the January transfer window. I know it's not the answer. I'm not saying we're going to win the Champions League with James McAtee, but he's a very, very exciting young kid. Why not play him in midfield, push Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden as a false nine? Because again, it's just like Haaland plays the whole game. He doesn't do anything. He came out in an interview, he looked very, very angry in the post-match interview.
Do you know why that's such a... It's an interesting shout from you, and it's an interesting thing for us to explore. But realistically, Manchester City, they've got their backs against the wall, right? The ceiling is crumbling down. If there is one thing that they desperately need, it's a goal. Who's more likely in that squad to get them a goal than anyone else? Erling Haaland. It almost feels like lunacy. And whilst I kind of agree with you, it could work, it would also look ridiculous to go... Like, you know the other day when Arsenal needed a goal? Arsenal were desperate for a goal, and Arteta took Martin Odegaard off. And everyone kind of went, oh, even if he's playing badly, even if he's struggling, your most creative player is most likely to help you provide...
But we were 2-0 down, Roar, so for a large part of the game. So the game's over.
In that game, in a
marginal game, you're right.
But what about going into your next game then? You don't genuinely believe that...
No, he starts the next game. But 45 minutes in, if we're 1-0 down again, 2-0 down to Everton, I know it's honestly, and there's a world we lose the next two games, by the way. You have to change something. You have to. He's just a passenger at the moment. But the issue is, Ilkay Gundogan, games are passing him by like it's your granddad playing. Seriously, like his legs are gone.
Do you think there's anything in? And I'm not kind of digging up old ground or trying to present my opinion from 3 years ago as correct. It was wrong. I've acknowledged it was wrong. Everything that I said that day to Thogden has been proved to be totally incorrect. I'm not going over old ground. I'm not even trying to revisit that. But I am just asking. You know, in the past when we've kind of compared Haaland to the very best, and I think we went early on that. We went very premature on how good Haaland is. And it was very difficult to argue when he was basically scoring in every single game that he played in on the way to a treble. But you know what he isn't doing? You know when things don't go well for a team? Sometimes they don't go well for a team, and the reason that the team will win the game is because it's gone badly for Manchester United and Wayne Rooney decides that he's going to win it for his team. Against the run of play, probably undeserved, and Wayne Rooney goes, do you know what? I'm going to win this game. Didier Drogba, Chelsea played at Everton a decade or so ago. We didn't play particularly well. The score's 2-2 in the last minute. Didier Drogba picks the ball up from a Hernan Crespo flick on. It's a nothing chance. He literally just goes, we're going to win today. We're therefore going to win the league because of me. Watch this. And did it.
Yeah. Watch this.
And there's so many examples over the years of excellent strikers just going, no, not today. We win today. That man on the telly there, Les Ferdinand, would have done it countless times.
The issue is he's never been that kind of player. He's never been Drogba.
Should he be?
He's never been Wayne Rooney.
Do you need him now, though, Buvey? Do you need him now
been
to just go, do you know what? I'm going to win the game for us. I'm a centre forward.
He's a fox in the box. That's what he is. The reality is Haaland is a fox in the box to an elite level that is better than almost any other striker in the history of the Premier League. Now, you bring in Drogba, you can give me aspects of Drogba's game that's far better than Haaland. And I agree with you about that. Same with Rooney, Henry, Shearer. But in terms of his finishing in the box, that's why these arguments about all-time 11s and he's top 10 strikers ever, he's been here 3 seasons, because of how good he is in the box. The ball's not arriving to him in the box. And that's why I said a few weeks ago, the back five.
More responsibility then?
He's a counter-attack, at best, in this situation, he's a counter-attacking striker where the ball has to get played over the top. He uses pace, and he's not running at players. The balls that get played over the top
but
to
the
him.
point I'm making is, should he be? Should he be doing more?
He's never had the touch.
Like, when Man United needed a goal and Ruud van Nistelrooy picks the ball up in his own half and just runs the length of the pitch.
Yeah.
Like, I know that that's not Haaland's game, but he's apparently the best striker in the world. His team need him now more than ever.
You remember when I
it's
said...
a cop-out to
go... He has to do more.
We aren't making chances for him.
He has to do more.
Yeah,
he has to do more.
Do you remember when I said I think Pep hates him? And this was when he was doing well.
Now.
And people kind of like went, what are you talking about? And I just meant by his style of playing, his style as a footballer. I don't think he brings enough to the all-round game to appease someone like Pep, personally.
There was that moment in the Manchester derby where Phil Foden's saying to Haaland, come shorter, come in front of the Man United centre-back. The Man United centre-back, I can't remember who it was, but I think he's the one that plays the ball over to Amad Diallo.
Yeah, Phil Foden wants to roll it into his feet, him hold it for a minute, him hold it for a beat, and allow Foden to break
take him off.
The way Harry Kane would. If you play the ball into Kane's feet, invariably you make a run either side of him and you pick the ball.
And he was a nasty footballer, Kane. people underestimate.
They were all great.
He put his back in and he'd elbow people, and you're not seeing any of that.
But you see, Haaland is worthy of discussion. Guardiola is worthy of discussion. Obviously, you mentioned Gundogan. Do you know what seems to have got coverage suddenly? Grealish. Suddenly. I think it's 45 games, 0 goals.
Yeah, look, this isn't me being stubborn, because I know I'm very stubborn when it comes to Jack Grealish. He had a good game yesterday. He had a good, not great game.
I thought
he was your
Foden
best.
was good.
Foden was all right.
He was your best threat.
Ortega was the best player, but outfield player, it was definitely Grealish.
Mental that you got beat and your keeper was your best player, isn't it?
Yeah, he should have been 4-0.
No. I mean, I agree with your assessment.
So bad, Ross.
It's just crazy.
so bad, mate.
It's crazy, and Stone's obviously out. Like,
but then it's your opinion. If your manager says you have to come back and you got an injury, you're chronically injured, the guy was crocked. He pressed into midfield for the first goal against Yuri Tielemans. Guardiola said press high on Tielemans. The guy was 15 yards up the pitch. He's got no pace. He's 30 years old.
Tielemans, an exceptional player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's incredible.
You could have done. It was a weird situation. When you're looking at the Man City game and you're looking at the Aston Villa play, and you're looking at the pitch, and Man City's riches, Man City's wealth of talent, the brilliance of their squad. You're looking at the game and you're like, why is the best player on this pitch by a mile Yuri Tielemans in an Aston Villa shirt? Like, how has it got to... If Tielemans is the best player out of all of the players that are available, why is he not wearing Man City sky blue?
Should have signed him. But he had that weird spell when he first went to Aston Villa, didn't quite work out. He's got a bit of a reputation maybe for not quite, maybe not working as hard as he could, or I don't know if that's true. He was fantastic. He scored that. Remember that goal in the FA Cup final? No one talks about it.
Yeah. You talk about it. You talk about it an awful lot. When you say no one talks about it, I reckon you bring it up every other show.
In the pantheon of FA Cup final, like, world class goals, it's right up there, isn't it?
It's a brilliant goal.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, it's no Frank Lampard against Everton 09, but it's a very good goal. Don't get me wrong. So yeah. I mean, I just don't know what to make of it.
What
if he loses the next two?
Are a few signings going to fix this, or what is the actual? I mean, if you could put your finger on it, you'd be working at City now, but what the hell's going on? It just feels so...
Do you need a new manager?
You asked after 6 games, how long does this have to go on for?
Was it 6?
Maybe it was a bit more, but it was
6,
at least 6 games ago, right? How long does this have to go on for until you go, the manager's got to go?
It's not, the thing is, right, what Rory said a few weeks ago was right in the sense, how long until he walks, then it's right. If the question is how long until the club sack him / City fans want him gone, the question is
City
void.
Fans will never want him gone.
Exactly.
I agree.
And same with the club. The club's that loyal.
But the problem is the club, as much as I actually disagree with what you've just said there. When you start talking about the loyalty of the club, these are business people, and maybe Manchester City's ownership are the first ever example of loyalty from businessmen in business.
But we're still in the top... sounds ridiculous. We're still in the top 10. We're still in the FA Cup. We're still in the Champions League just about.
You're in the FA Cup because you haven't played a game. You're not in the FA Cup because you've made it to the semi-final.
But what I'm saying is we're not in March and we've lost every cup competition. We're out of the Champions League. We're 50.
That almost makes it more interesting, though. That almost makes it more interesting from their point of view because the season is salvageable.
If you're the owner, if you've got to think, right, I'm not talking about this season. What's the next 3, 4, 5 years? The club is in better shape next season, in August next year, with Pep Guardiola, with a load of new transfers. It's weird, isn't it?
Because when you talk about sacking a manager, quite often what you say, when I say the term sack a manager, it's emotional. It's emotive. People are hearing those words. And quite often what you're doing when you're saying that is you're linking blame to the manager. You're suggesting the manager is no longer good enough. Sometimes that isn't necessarily the truth. Sometimes the journey just ends. It's over. It isn't that Guardiola isn't the best manager in the world. It isn't that Manchester City are finished as a club. It's just that the marriage...
Mourinho the first time.
But the owners would never think that.
I mean, yeah, it's an example. I mean, the one that really strikes me as being that, and it was the wrong decision, but when Abramovich decided to get rid of Carlo Ancelotti, which was a terrible decision, that was 15 years ago. And Carlo Ancelotti won the European Cup last year. We sacked this man. It wasn't that we went, he's sacked, he's finished, he's not good enough to manage Chelsea. Far from it.
But the owners won't do that. Honestly, I know the owners quite well in terms of when they communicate with fans, what they talk about, their strategy. I can make an assessment. Trust me. And the only way they'd sack him this season is if he said, "Look, let me go." No, they'll never sack him unless the club went down to 18th, 19th in the league and losing 5-0 every week.
And then he probably walks.
I know it sounds crazy. We're not that bad.
No, you're not going to.
We beat Forest.
The worst it gets for him is mutual consent.
Lucky you had that run at the beginning of the season.
Kept us afloat.
Yeah.
Do you remember that when we were looking at Savino and we're going like, oh my God.
Yeah, against Chelsea.
How are we going to cope with these?
It was in terms of like the first few games of the season. Remember, Haaland scored basically every week. He hasn't touched the ball since, but He scored basically every week.
I regret a few things I tweeted about Guardiola, saying he's the best manager of all time in the Premier League. I tweeted some mad stuff at the start of the season. That's how good we were.
What have you?
We were unbelievable.
You know
I said Haaland was the greatest number 9, that and the other.
You know that debate around managerial legacies? Do you think that this has... So I think I've always suggested that Ferguson is the best. I think lots of people have countered that and suggested Guardiola. If you believe Guardiola, or you believe, say a month ago when this, or 2 months ago before this run, if you then thought Guardiola, does this run maybe tap into Ferguson's legacy?
Yeah, but
Ferguson never lost more than 3 in a row, did he?
But Ferguson lost 16. I think he lost 16 in a season in 89-90. Took him 4 years to win the league.
Very different Man United team, though.
Yeah, but you're still a big club, aren't you? So there's still a lot of games to lose, by the way.
Do you think, no, okay, mate, I'm just curious. Do you think it does? Do you think there's anybody that thought it was Guardiola, the best manager the Premier League's ever seen, and this run has made them reassess?
No.
Do you think that's happened? No.
No. What if he wins the Champions League this season? Crazy things have happened.